All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, all. It is our Friday show. Kim is here. How are you, Kim? Albert is here.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah. Very, very cool. And I'm here, everyone. Please, how about some canned applause for my... Yeah, thank you. I'm ready for some Friday Fabulous Florida, says Walter. We've got a good one. There's a fight, as I saw in Friday Fabulous Florida, completely curated by Albert. There's a fight over, as I recall, an Xbox or something like that. I looked at it.
I think there's a samurai sword involved.
Yes, there's a samurai sword fight over an Xbox in Florida today. So it's going to be pretty great. I think that...
there's a reason that this place is fun.
Oh, and I think Grady is in... Grady, our sheriff... That's our sheriff, our favorite Florida sheriff.
What he's got going here is a situation.
Yeah, that guy is in Friday Fabulous Florida as well. Look, the news is serious, too, out of Russia. We will review a bit of the Navalny death. He's the really the thorn in the side of Vladimir Putin. What's going on in Georgia? We'll play you a little bit of that testimony and an FBI fraud, as it turns out. All of that still to come. Top of the next hour, it's Elex Michaelson, who fills for Michael Shure today to talk about politics. You know, Elex from The Issue Is, and from his moderating the first debate here in California for the Senate seat vacated by Dianne Feinstein. So that'll be in the second hour. And, of course, in the second hour, the culture blaster, Michael Snyder. Fridays, we do our kickback look at what movies are there and what TV shows are streamable, what things you can watch and enjoy. I remind you that Monday is a best of show. And we've kind of baked that cake already, the best of. And we based what we put in the show on some emails that we got at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. That's our address. If you want to send us an email, it's themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
And after we baked the cake, we got some emails with segments that we didn't bake into the cake. It's only 2 hours, so we can't have every segment. But we decided, I was talking to Kim last night, and she was saying we should keep these suggestions and, build some additional best of shows just in case we need them.
Kim, how are you?
So that was a really good idea, and that's what we will do. So thank you for your input at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. Anything else before I begin? Do we have, did you tweet, Albert?
Just adding the finishing touches.
That's a no. He didn't.
Has to be perfect.
Albert, thank you.
Just adding the finishing touches.
I had quite a lot of videos to review prior to the show.
Yes, it's true. I sent Albert, and actually very late last night I started. And then I started very early this morning. I continued what I started very late last night, sending him videos and content for the show. I'm worrying about the show all the time.
Whoever is
and I don't see why I can't get a similar commitment from the people who I'm doing the show with. Anyway, he was distracted by a lot of the stuff, the blizzard of things that I sent to him.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The death of Alexei Navalny is a turning point, right? Huge critic of Vladimir Putin. His fate, clearly at the hands of Putin. In fact, it was called out as such by Joe Biden, wasn't it, Kim?
Yes, it was. And the Secretary of State, Blinken.
He was already serving 30 years, essentially a life sentence at this horrible, notorious prison. There he is. He was poisoned once, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he was. I mean, is anyone surprised that he finally has met his maker?
It's a new turning point for Russia because it's Putin flexing and essentially reasserting Kremlin power. You will see any critic of Putin, any rival of Putin, you will see them shrink up, right? And as he continues his war in Ukraine and he continues his grip on Russia, Putin has asserted himself in the most brutal way and sort of a tried and true way that Putin has made a name for himself, right, as a brutal dictator. And, you know, it's interesting. It's a shame that sit down or whatever that was with, what's his name? Tucker Carlson didn't go down after this. There is Navalny in court. That was during a court appearance some time ago.
And he was in court yesterday, I believe, a couple of days ago. And they said he was healthy, fine, and joking around. Now he's dead. Imagine having being in Russia, knowing what's likely to befall you, and still having the stones to stand up and go against Putin.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And, you know, there are sanctions against Russia, as you're aware, that we impose. They appear not to be working particularly well on the Russian economy, although the Russian economy is a fraction of what, you know, Russians live in a world of immense real estate. They take up tremendous amount of land. You know, the place is just immense, Russia. But the economy is, you know, smaller than Canada's. And you'd think that our sanctions would have some effect. They really haven't. It was thought that if you were to kill Navalny, it would have a negative effect on Putin's image, on Putin's power. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I think eliminating his opposition as he's done in one way or another, you know, poisoning, throwing somebody out windows. I mean, these people, you know, this is it's a pretty clear strategy he's been pursuing for some time, has seemed to be effective. He's essentially reinforced his power. But there are those in Russia who would argue that killing Navalny actually indicates an insecurity on the part of Putin, that he is worried. And for that reason, he had to snuff out this bit of opposition. Anyway, it's a, look, this is a potentially inflection point in not only Russia with the killing of Navalny, but also in Ukraine, because the Ukrainians are kind of taking on water there. They're not winning that war, if you want to think of it that way. And now with America likely not supporting them financially, and you've got increasing indications that there will be no support. It's a scary time. I mean, if you accept the vision of Russia and Europe in this way that suggests an expansionist Russia taking over Ukraine, not stopping there. I mean, he didn't stop in Crimea, right, when Putin took Crimea, and now it suggested Ukraine, which would be an immense takeover. I mean, obviously, you know, it's as a food production and economic engine, it would be a jewel for Putin to take it over. That it threatens an expansionist Russia taking over the rest of those nations that were in Russian control for so long as the Soviet Union. So there's a lot going on here besides just the loss of Navalny, but the loss of Navalny is significant in itself. So that's a word about that. And
The Mark Thompson Show.
The other thing that's going on is, I mean, there's a lot going on. You've got a trial date for the former president, Donald Trump, right? It's is it March 23rd that he's going to be?
I did everything right and they indicted me.
Yeah, it's tough break. But he has, he has these bullet trains to various courtrooms. And I believe he has a trial date. That's the hush money trial. Remember when he
The Stormy
paid off
Daniels.
Stormy Daniels. Yeah.
That one wasn't even on my radar. I thought that was a done deal.
Yeah.
I can't keep track of my Trump trials.
Yeah.
That's going to be a
There's never been
trivia
anything like
category.
this.
Yeah.
Trump trials for 500 points.
Yeah. I believe it's March 23rd now will be, if you want to take out your big Trump calendar. March 23rd will be the beginning of that trial. It's the first criminal. Oh, March 25th. I'm sorry. I said 23rd. Yeah. March 25th. So if you have the Disney calendar, like MAGA Mickey, MAGA Mickey's got the Disney calendar.
2024!
Yeah, MAGA Mickey will circle March 25th as the beginning of the first criminal trial against the former president of the United States. First criminal trial to be launched against a U.S. president. Jury selection. And maybe MAGA Mickey could get on the jury. You never know. There's always hoping.
Did you see yesterday how angry, and I don't know, angry is the right word, indignant that Fani Willis got on the witness stand? And rightly so.
That's our next story. So let's get to it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Fani Willis is throwing heat. You know what's happening? It's an investigation, essentially, into a relationship she had with this prosecutor. It's being suggested, and this is a classic move. It's a Roy Cohn-inspired move. Roy Cohn, as you know, idolized by Trump. And Roy Cohn's move is, investigate the investigators, right? Prosecute the prosecutors when you're in trouble. And that's all that Trump is trying to do is stall. So the accusations that Fani Willis hired this guy as prosecutor who she was rolling around with, and then the argument is, it's not just a romantic connection. The argument is, and it's critical, this is a critical part of the argument, that money was essentially gifted to him in this new job because it's a lot of money that he's making. And then that money circled back to Fani Willis, and maybe even in the form of vacations, or that's why these vacations they took together are, noted along the way in the trial. But she did bite back, as Kim says. Albert, do you have the Fani Willis? Yeah, go ahead with that Fani Willis
But Willis,
testimony.
again, testifying under oath, said that she did not need Wade's money while discussing the relationship.
Did the forthcoming indictment have anything to do with that? Or was it just a coincidence?
Mr. Let's go on and have the conversation.
I've just asked you whether or not it was a coincidence.
Had absolutely nothing to do with this. It's interesting that we're here about this money. Mr. Wade is used to women that, as he told me one time, the only thing a woman can do for him is make him a sandwich. We would have brutal arguments about the fact that I am your equal. I don't need anything from a man. A man is not a plan. A man is a companion. And so there was tension always in our relationship, which is why I would give him his money back. I don't need anybody to foot my bills. The only man who's ever foot my bills completely is my daddy.
Is there anything else you would like to add to that?
No.
Sure.
But I'm sure we'll talk about it further.
Yeah, I'd like to add something. You're a dick. How's that? Order in the court. So
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
So she's tough. And
a man is not a plan.
Her dad is an amazing dude. Now, if you don't know who her dad is a guy who was in the Black Panther Party, I believe. Then he left the Black Panther Party, went to law school, okay? And he was in some of those peace organizations like, student committees for peace, this kind of thing.
Sure.
So this is a really smart guy, a very learned man, capable. And here he is today, I believe, in, call it the witness box, as they continue this investigation. Go ahead, Albert.
Or left the house that she owned.
Oh, stop for a second, Albert. Excuse me. Let me just set this up one more. This is about, the notion is she reimbursed for any expenses that, were incurred. Like she wasn't getting a free ride from her boyfriend, the prosecutor. She reimbursed, she said, in cash. And what's being suggested here and the questioning is around, really? You have all that cash around that you're actually reimbursing in cash? You seem to be doing that reimbursement in cash, and a lot of people would sign checks. She said, I don't have checks. Here's her dad speaking to the cash situation.
Anything to you about having a large savings of cash?
Oh, no, no. See, maybe, excuse me, and Your Honor, I'm not trying to be racist, okay? But it's a black thing, okay? I was trained, and most black folks, they hide cash or they keep cash. And I trained, you always keep some cash, because I've been places, and just because of the color of my skin, for example, I took a fellowship at Harvard when my daughter was just, if I might, Your Honor, when I was just, she was just, maybe 3 years old. And I remember going to a restaurant in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I had a American Express credit card and maybe a Visa or whatever. And I had a lot of what they call traveler's checks. I don't even know if they still have traveler's checks, but traveler's checks. And there was a sign said, with the credit card. For whatever reasons, the man would not take my American Express credit card. So I pulled out my Visa card, and he wouldn't take my Visa card. So then I pulled out my traveler's checks. He said, we don't take checks. Now, these were traveler's checks. This was money. I had a $10 bill. I'll never forget this as long as I live. And he said, the bill for my wife at the time, Fani's mother, Fani, and myself was like $9.95, and I had a $10 bill. It was all that. I always remember that. But even before that, I've always kept cash, and I've told my daughter, you keep 6 months worth of cash always. For example, I had 3 safes in my house. I put some of my clients' stuff there too, things I didn't want other lawyers to be, because you're always in a firm, and I knew that there were special conditions. So some of my clients' things I would bring home, put them in the safe. But I've always kept safes. And as a matter of fact, I gave my daughter her first cash box and told her, always keep some cash.
There you go.
I did not know that. What a different kind of experience that he's had.
Yeah. This is a guy who came up. That's why, as I mentioned, he was a Black Panther.
Yep.
He came up in the Civil Rights Movement. When the Civil Rights Movement, incredibly dangerous. He participated in sit-ins at segregated lunch counters. This is a guy who really took on tough political issues. Most of them, I'd suspect, would have to do with civil rights, but also, as I mentioned, he was involved in the peace movement as Vietnam was going on and all of that. I believe that some of that, he was at least adjacent to it. He renounced violence. He enrolled, as I say, in a law school. And, to me, he was a great bit of testimony in all of this. Yeah. So haters going to hate. I see in our, in our chat, the typical, usual suspects, he's full of ass. Okay, I get it, guys. You don't even listen to what he says.
That didn't feel full of ass. It felt like a legit story from his past and a reason why he would teach his kid to do certain things a certain way.
I'll tell you, look, I'm not here to defend everything that Fani Willis did. And I'm also, as you know, having listened to David Katz, of the view that, she made an error. She absolutely made a stupid error. Maybe it was, I've said the heart wants what it wants. You work closely with someone, you go, man, I really like that person, whatever, and they fill a void. But you have to understand, you're part of a very important agenda here, and if it's important enough to you, you have to push back on these urges. That said, it strikes me that it's not clear exactly what happened. I was raised to always keep cash for any kind of emergency, says Rebecca. Cash is king and gets you in and out of situations everywhere in the world. Yeah. Anyway, I think Russ is, it's bad PR, says Spencer, right. Russ says the optics on the Willis debacle are bad, but does not, debacle is a dang word, but does not excuse the need to delay the case against the former president. It's not an excuse, I think what you're saying, is to delay. Yeah.
And I like how...
yeah.
Go ahead.
Lady Beatrice with a super chat and a big shout out and thank you for super chats, super stickers today, as a crowd-funded show. We appreciate it.
Big shout out.
Hands up. Who thinks it's a bad idea to let criminals' parents pull this crap in court? Yeah, I mean, you're saying that you're calling her a criminal, essentially, Lady Beatrice? Is that what you're saying? Or it's one thing to explain some context of one's upbringing, but I would have liked to have been able to make the connection, says the Lady Beatrice. I feel like I need one more super chat to really understand what your point is.
Definitive text there, yeah.
Yeah, just put it in. You don't have to super chat it. You can just put it in. You don't have to pay for it. But if you're saying you don't believe her, okay, I mean, that's fair. But I thought this did contextualize it in a pretty decent way,
Here's the thing. Like, do you want to go on vacation with someone just to get a free vacation? No.
Yes,
no.
I do. Thank you.
No.
Thank you. Depends
You're
on the
not gonna
vacation.
Go on vacation with just anybody because part of the vacation is the person you're with. If you're traveling with someone you don't even like or you don't want to be with, that's not a vacation.
Well, that's not what happened. Yeah, but Kim, I mean, please, I find that explanation.
I'm just
I think
saying,
no.
There's a difference between taking a vacation with someone.
That's not what they're saying. They're saying they liked each other, but he paid
for it. But I'm saying her motivations can't be completely financial.
And that's totally believable. The story that, I mean, just to be fair to the facts, it's totally believable. In fact, it's chivalrous for the man to pay. It's kind of old school. That's what I would do. I would pay, Sure. I never went out with anybody where they paid for anything. I always paid because otherwise they wouldn't go out with me. There you go, everybody. I mean, that's the truth. Just being honest.
There's a reason this place is fun.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
But I'm just saying that I don't think she sat in her office and thought, ooh, I'm going to pay this guy $600,000 and make him take me on trips.
Right. But
I mean, her motivation wasn't that.
But again, to be fair, it could have been just an additional thing. It doesn't have to be the motivation underlying it, but it could have been one more thing that pushed it forward. Anyway, let me look at the Lady Beatrice. She was so nice and sent us a superstar. I'm saying that he was saying a lot of things, and that's great that he had a lot to say in his daughter's defense. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there was a main point that I was failing to pick out. Well, the main point, Lady Beatrice, as far as Fani Willis's dad is concerned, is twofold. One, he was making the point just on the clip we played that there was cash that was a part of their lives growing up and continues to be a part of her life now. He even went on to say, I bought her the cash box that she has. It was one of the, et cetera. The second point that's made, we didn't play you this, but it was made, is he wasn't aware of a relationship between his daughter and this prosecutor. But that doesn't surprise me. I mean, my parents weren't aware of it. I don't know. We're so into the weeds, and somebody on our live chat made this point, and I think it's a real good one. Here's Daniel. I'm sorry. The former president's attempt to steal 80 million of our votes, and we're concerned about someone's relationship. Mm-hmm. If Trump gets out of this one, our country is truly lost. I mean,
that's what Fani Willis said in court. She said, "You guys trying to put me on trial. The people," and she pointed over at the defendants. She said, "Those people tried to steal an election. They're the ones on trial. So you're going to try to put me on trial, but I'm not the person on trial here."
Yeah, and that's exactly right. A. Parcelli said, I always keep $2,000 to $3,000 cash on hand. A. Parcell, I'd like to talk to you about our Patreon and PayPal. You seem like someone who might have a few dollars to throw our way.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Kim's news upcoming. Then Friday, fabulous Florida. We will talk more about this, at least touch on its political impact, with Elex Michaelson, who joins top of the next hour. I have to give you a little bit of a, this is a huge story. We didn't even get to it. Albert, I have to do this story about this FBI informant who alleged that Biden and his son Hunter had received multi-million-dollar bribes from a foreign businessman. No, he's just been indicted. He fabricated the whole story. The whole story was BS.
What?
And there are GOP congresspeople, senators and congresspeople who've run with this story, and they're still running. But forget about GOP congresspeople. There are major media outlets like Fox News that are still running with it. They don't care that it's BS. They're ignoring it. I think it's a huge, huge story, and we got to spend just
calling me a liar. Is that what you're calling me?
Yeah, I mean, it's a total. I'm not calling you a liar. You've got an official indictment. You fabricated this entire story. So
you, sir, are a liar.
Run that story for me, Albert, and then we can get to Kim's news. Go for it.
Tonight, the special counsel investigating Hunter Biden filing criminal charges against a former FBI informant who allegedly lied to agents about Hunter Biden's business dealings with Ukrainian energy company Burisma. Special counsel David Weiss charging Alexander Smirnov provided the FBI false derogatory information, claiming Burisma executives told him they'd hired Hunter Biden when his father was vice president to, quote, protect us through his dad from all sorts of problems. The FBI determining that was not true. The indictment further charges Smirnov lied when he told agents Burisma executives paid the Bidens a $5 million bribe when Joe Biden was vice president. The special counsel now saying the defendant's story to the FBI was a fabrication. It comes as House Republicans are moving ahead to impeach the president. They have found no evidence he acted improperly, but have repeatedly leaned on the words of an FBI informant.
Even a trusted FBI informant has alleged a bribe to the Biden family.
And a highly credible FBI source alleges that Joe Biden received $5 million in exchange for pressuring for the firing of a Ukrainian prosecutor.
Tonight, a congressional source telling ABC News the FBI informant the Republicans were talking about is the same man who was indicted today for lying to the FBI about Joe and Hunter Biden. The alleged motive for lying, the special counsel says Smirnov had bias against then candidate Joe Biden. House Republicans say it's still full steam ahead on impeachment.
Of course, it's full speed. You're not going to let the facts stand in the way of a good impeachment. Yeah. Absolute insanity. But that's where we are. And they're literally a trusted FBI informant. Please. Fabricated the whole damn story.
And I bet they're not even embarrassed about it.
Well, I've just told you. I mean, Fox News is like full speed ahead on this thing. Just as the impeachment proceedings will be full speed ahead. I mean, this is James Comer's #1 impeachment witness. Thank you, Brian. That's exactly right. Just insanity. Friday Fabulous Florida next. Smash the like button if you would.
With your iron rod.
If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching whenever, if you're luxuriating, listening to the show, give us a thumbs up.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Smash it with your iron rod. And Friday Fabulous Florida follows Kim's news. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I'll add and tea as well. Coachella Valley Coffee. All right, let's go straight to the courts because what we know is that a ruling is expected very soon in former President Trump's civil fraud trial in New York City. So a judge could impose a fine of up to $370 million and ban Trump from doing business in New York. In Georgia, day 2 of a hearing in a bid to remove Fulton County DA Fani Willis from the former president's election fraud case. And what we know in this one, as Mark was mentioning, that Willis will not take the witness stand again. So prosecutors make the decision this morning after the Fulton County DA gave what's being called combative testimony yesterday while being pressed about cash and vacations that she took with Trump prosecutor Nathan Wade. The hearing is set to determine whether Willis should be removed from the Trump Georgia election case because of alleged misconduct surrounding their romantic relationship. President Biden says Vladimir Putin is responsible for the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Here's a picture of Mr. Navalny. President Biden said Navalny's death in prison is proof of the Russian president's brutality. And President Biden praising Navalny, calling him brave for standing up to corruption and violence carried out by Putin's government. Reports out of Russia today say the outspoken critic of Putin died while behind bars at the age of 47. Hundreds of people turned out for a candlelight vigil to remember the victims of the Kansas City Victory Rally shooting. One woman died, nearly 24 others wounded in the mass shooting on Wednesday. Police say this all likely stemmed from a personal dispute and was not related to the Chiefs' victory celebration. Who opens fire in the middle of a crowd like that? In Los Angeles, it appears that a pit bull breeder was killed by his own dogs. Happened in Los Angeles County. LA Sheriff's investigators say they found a 35-year-old man mauled at his home in Compton. The victim's girlfriend called for help this morning, but the man was dead when deputies arrived. It appears he was feeding the dogs when a fight started and they turned on him. 13 dogs are now in the hands of animal control officers. Investigators say the number of dogs and the number of kennels in that backyard point to a breeding operation. Scientists have uncovered more water in space. Let me get you the asteroid picture. That's kind of a cool shot. I don't think it's real, but that's okay. Well, thanks to a retired NASA mission.
Like this. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, the science.
The science
that's it. That's
is
what
ridiculous.
I expected. Yeah, right.
Science is ridiculous. No, thanks to a retired NASA mission, scientists found water on the surface of 2 asteroids.
Wow.
The Southwest Research Institute says it is the first known finding of water molecules on an asteroid's surface. And scientists say discoveries like these can help uncover information about how the Earth got its water and potentially show researchers where to look for life in space. Do we really want to find it? Scientists are planning on continuing their research. They've marked 30 or more asteroids to investigate. How do you investigate? You just send a little probe up there, dig for some water.
You got to do some probing, right? You got to do some math and some probing.
Yeah, it's all about
some
the
science
probing
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
The science is ridiculous.
Well, it's the ridiculous science that leads to the discoveries.
This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It's the bomb, the good stuff. That's right.
Yeah,
I've got
baby.
the mango iced tea, and I've got to tell you, it's so good. I'm so happy that I have it. You can find it at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. That is where you can scan around. You're looking at the website here and the options. They've got there you just passed that tea that Mark loves. It is the mint with date crystals. So the next time I order, that's what I'm going to order.
That's our new one. But you also, I love it all. I love the Earl Grey and but today I'm straight up espresso, baby. Yeah. Give me that dark roast.
Even my husband, the coffee snob, is on board with Coachella Valley Coffee.
So delicioso.
So good. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And boy, do we have a treat for you. You get 10% off just for being a Mark Thompson Show listener.
Wow.
Enter Mark T in the checkout code box altogether, Mark T, and you get your 10% off. And I think the teas are around $10 a bag, and they last me for a little more than a month. I don't use that much. I'm judicious with my tea.
Wow, you're judicious with your ding words.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, a ding word in a spot. This is fantastic.
Really? Oh, there's the decaf. That's the Why Are You Yelling decaf. I actually need to get more of that.
Why are you yelling?
Yeah, that's our own Why Are You Yelling decaf.
I'm yelling because the coffee is so great.
Get that 10% off of that, so it'll be a little less than $20.
CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Get your discount, get your good stuff, and you're good to go. I'm Kim McAllister. This is the Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson? 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 Who's Mark Thompson?
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, Mark. It's George Santos here.
Yeah, hi, George, and hi, everybody. Great to have everybody in the mix.
Hey, Mark. It's George Santos here.
I heard you the first time, George. Nice to have you in the mix.
A lot of people are telling me you're a liar.
Well, I don't recall any lies, but, you know, we can do an investigation. It is great to have everybody in the mix, as I think I said already. And among the people who join us on Fridays, the former producer of our show on KGO Radio. We came out of a radio station called KGO in San Francisco, and he worked closely there to take the show from radio to YouTube. How about it for fabulous producer John Daly?
Producer John Daly.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark.
All
And
right.
it was a pain in the ass, wasn't it?
Oh, my God, it's still a pain in the ass.
PITA.
It really is. But John is, in addition to being gifted, and smart, and handsome, he can grow a beard.
Thank you.
In a matter of minutes, which is a remarkable skill.
You know, I actually had a homeless man on the street last night compliment me on my jacket. I turned around and he said, "Oh, and I love your beard." He said, "I like my beard too."
Wow.
Girl, you just
Yeah, that's how it starts.
Right now it's
before you
mating
know it.
season, and they're hungry.
Right now it's mating season. And how about Angela Silva? Excuse me, John, but big shout out.
Big shout out.
For a $10 super sticker. You know, we're a crowd-funded show, so we appreciate super stickers, super chats, and of course our Patreon and PayPal.
Well, we were talking about how the fact that, or you were talking about the fact that Mark pays for dates, right? And I can attest to the fact that.
Well, don't put it like that. I mean,
well, that you pay for things when you go out.
Yeah, when I'm on a date with somebody.
I want to attest to the fact that Mark does pay, because when we went to the Red Jack, Mark insisted on paying for drinks. He was polite to the staff, and he tipped very well, which is what you're looking for when you're on a date.
Wow.
You need to look for those things, right?
I didn't realize I was on like a job interview type situation. Very, very cool.
Taking notes.
Yeah, impressive.
Let me kick down the door and talk to my cheap sons and daughters.
Yeah. All right. So
he bought me drinks too at a tiki bar. So,
what?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Trying to.
I thought I was special.
No.
What can you tell us about the scene?
Mark's buying drinks for everybody later.
What can you tell us about the scene?
Yeah, Mark's paying for everything. All right.
I ordered a Kim Teeny. Is that what it's called?
Oh, yeah, Kim Teeny at the Red Jack. We love the Red Jack. I hope everything's okay at the Red Jack. We love it there. In San Francisco, if you go to San Francisco, and you must, please put aside a moment to go to the Red Jack Saloon. They are great supporters. They were supporters when we were on the radio in San Francisco. It's a great spot, and there is a magic about the place.
Kimikaze. It's called the Kimikaze.
Kimikaze. And then I have a Martini.
Yeah, I got that confused.
So, all right. We've done it long enough. Albert has curated a Friday Fabulous Florida. Albert, are you feeling good about things? I mean, is this I've seen some positive indications in Florida today.
Albert, thank you.
Right.
Yeah, I'm liking it so far, so.
Okay.
Hopefully you will like it too.
It's holding.
The commish with his typical enthusiasm. This is Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
The samurai sword business is alive and well in Florida.
Yeah.
And this latest incident involved a 35-year-old dude named Walter Grimes. Walter is working the scene with a samurai sword.
What can you tell us about the scene?
He's got a samurai sword in it, Larry. The Daytona Beach apartment complex that normally is kind of a chill place. Well, it was a place of shock and horror. A 911 call came from this Daytona Beach apartment complex in which apparently there was an argument over an Xbox.
Oh.
That Xbox, I guess, was so desirable that Grimes got upset when the Xbox was not handed over to him by his, quote, friend, and he started swinging this samurai sword.
It's all fun and games until the sword play begins.
That's exactly it.
Do you think the 911 operator is like, samurai sword? Are you sure it's not a machete?
Press 3
This
for
is
samurai
Florida.
sword. Press 4 for machete. Apparently, the guy he hit with the samurai sword had cuts all over his face and shoulder. He was struck in the hand as well as he tried to block the sword, they say.
Oh, man.
He was screaming as he ran out of the apartment. One neighbor heard the commotion, saw the victim covered in blood. That's the person in the apartment complex who called 911. The victim taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. That is your perpetrator there that we showed you. A Florida woman, meantime, goes more old school, not a samurai sword here. She's a 28-year-old woman, and she smacked her mom in the face with grits.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a... What? Well, that's what she used. But the whole thing was very food-centric. She used the grits to smack her mom in the face, but the argument was about pizza. Yeah.
What? This sounds like Mad Libs again.
It does have a Mad Lib-ish quality. I think that's
Argument
a fair
was
point.
about?
It happened the Marion County area in Florida. She was sleeping on the street in Ocala on Sunday night, but asked her mother to pick her up so that she could have a warm place to sleep. It's kind of a sad story. The next morning, I mean, the mother did come by and pick her up, so you're kind of thinking like you'd sort of have a warm spot in your heart for the mother who's given you a warm spot to sleep. But Mobley, this is her pictured, Jakayla Mobley, the 28-year-old, she told her mother that she was going to make a pizza in the oven.
I love the smile. A little
The
like,
mother
grin.
said that she's making grits, and you could have some of that or another breakfast food. We're not making pizza, is what the mother said. You know, sometimes you gotta hit them with tough love.
Right.
Well, Mobley began to argue she wanted pizza, not grits. And that caused the mother to lose it and hit her with the grits. The argument after that turned into an arrest, and apparently she has previous battery arrests, placed under arrest, and transported to the Marion County
Now, is
jail.
that a misdemeanor?
Going here is a situation.
'Cause it seems like it depends on what is being thrown in Florida, in terms of food. Is it a misdemeanor? Did they mention?
Yeah, it's, $2,500 bond. I bet it was, I don't know if it's, she has multiple battery arrests, so that may
Probably
upgrade
depends
it
on
to
the
another.
consistency of the grits.
Good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. And an under-heralded point. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That's why you're here, fabulous producer John Daly.
Fabulous producer John Daly.
I was
A
wondering.
Florida man was arrested after he was caught stealing equipment from a construction site. It happened in Lake County. Ernest Tanellis, 55, looks like a handsome guy.
Yeah, intense.
He does have an intense.
He's looking
air
into your
about him.
soul.
Intense, but not malevolent.
No,
he has a kind of
He looks serious.
soulful intensity. Yeah.
Yes, soulful. Thank you. That's exactly the word I wanted.
That's more like a headshot than a mugshot. Wow.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly my point. It looks very Hollywood.
Yeah.
He was charged with larceny, grand theft, and trespassing after he broke into this construction area. Apparently, a deputy on patrol just was conducting a property check in the area, saw the dude near the intersection putting brick pavers from a pallet pile into the bed of his pickup truck. So, it wasn't like he's taking one or two things. This is a pretty big, in fact, Albert, I think there's a picture of all the stuff he was taking. The construction site has a sign that says, "Warning, this area is a designated construction site. Anyone convicted of trespassing on this property shall be guilty of a felony."
Don't take
Meantime,
stuff.
there's the stuff.
That's what happens when you ignore the sign.
Yeah. He grabbed 30 6x6 brick pavers and 80 6x9 brick pavers. You get your 6x6 brick pavers, you get your 6x9 brick pavers, and you can do some paving, is what I'm saying.
I like that the police are doing property checks. Can you imagine that happening in California?
Yeah, that's right. How quickly would the SFPD just scream past that? Right. To be fair, there's probably some other property crime they're on their way to. So, you know. A Florida man calls 911 during his arrest. He was calling 911 to complain about the officers who were arresting him.
What?
Yes, that is a balls move.
These officers are not good enough. Could you send me the nicer ones? Thank you.
How would you rate your arrest?
He was causing a scene, they say, inside of a Wawa.
Oh.
And the whole thing...
A what?
A Wawa is
like a gas station, right?
Yeah, it's a gas station kind of convenience store.
What can you tell us about the scene?
The scene was over a handicapped parking spot, Larry.
What can you tell us about the scene?
There's a 911 call complaining about the officers who were arresting him. Nicholas Taylor is his name. You see him there in...
It's a wild idea, but it just might work.
It might. Can you imagine if other cops showed up and said, "Hey, guys, come on." Nicholas Taylor, I'm saying it, not the greatest booking picture, but not the worst we've seen. 39 years old.
He might cry. Looks like he's on the edge.
He does.
He's not going to cry.
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
Now, I'll tell you what he is.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Bingo. Yes, there's alcohol involved. Exactly right. He was booked on disorderly intoxication, which I didn't even know was a charge. I've never heard that charge.
Did you really just do that?
Yeah.
That's just
he
not
looks
drunk.
like
That's drunk and belligerent.
He looks how I feel, says Casey.
I need all the drunks in one line. Come on, people.
He looks nice, says Gail Guthrie. Love the do, says Ricky O'Bear. Yeah, you ought to check him out. In the YouTube picture, you can see him in all his glory. He's Florida sweaty, says Tom. He is. Yeah, I think that's a fair take. Anyway, he called 911 when he came across. I'm sorry. Let's get back to the incident. He was charged with disorderly intoxication, misuse of 911 after this incident that unfolded at this gas station, and it was on Highway 27 in the Lady Lake area. He called 911 when he spotted a car that was parked in the handicap spot without a permit. And he stormed into the store and he caused a scene, they say, about this car that was parked in the handicap spot out front without a permit.
What can you tell us about the scene?
I'm causing a scene about the scene, Larry. So he comes into the Wawa and he says, "Do you want to fight?" And when the cops show up, he challenges them to fight.
No.
Then he stood behind the vehicle to prevent it from leaving and continued to pick a fight with law enforcement. And during this, apparently he was unsteady on his feet, said they could smell the odor of an alcohol beverage on him, the cops said. And because of his level of intoxication, cops said they told him to either find a ride or be arrested. Because if he got behind the wheel of his own car, he would be arrested for DUI. He became argumentative, demanded a police sergeant respond to the scene.
What can you tell us about the scene?
Police sergeant at the scene, Larry. The responding officer said that he was, in fact, the sergeant on duty. You're talking to the sergeant. Taylor ignored him, picked up his phone, and called 911 for another non-emergency matter, he says, to complain about the officers who were dealing with him at the Wawa. God, this is so Florida, this story.
Yeah. That's white privilege, though. You know,
you're right
service,
about
hello?
that. That is so
I am
white
not happy
privilege.
with my arrest.
Let me tell you something. You guys are going to get a very poor Yelp rating after this. A Florida man imprisoned 37 years for a murder he didn't commit.
Oh, no.
He's now getting $14 million. Bravo. Robert Du Bois is his name. He spent 37 years in a Florida prison for a 1983 RAPE and murder he didn't commit. Mm-hmm. Now he's set to get $14 million from the city of Tampa as compensation for all those years. Of course, it is, it doesn't bring back his life.
Kim, is that enough money, or would you turn it down? Because we know you have to get the big jackpot.
Oh, me?
Yeah. That's right. Remember,
Like,
Kim,
is it
you don't
enough?
like the 1.5 million. You want the
14 million for 37 years of my life? No. I want $1 million for every year you locked me up.
You don't want the annuity. You want the one-time cash payment.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, he was 18 when the crime occurred, initially sentenced to death for the killing of this 19-year-old. His sentence later reduced to life. But in 2018, the Innocence Project helped him, and the prosecutors agreed to give the case another look. And DNA testing that wasn't available in the early 80s pointed to 2 other guys in the slaying. Yeah. And then Du Bois sued the city of Tampa and the police officers who investigated the case, and a forensic dentist who testified that his teeth matched a purported bite mark on the victim. So everybody was, full of it. The lawsuit was settled, and it's been officially approved. He'll get $14 million. Yeah. A Florida man is arrested after leading deputies on a pursuit in a UTV, a small blue UTV.
What's the UTV?
What is there it is.
Oh, yeah.
What does UTV stand for, Albert?
Let me do a quick Google. So I'm utility.
Google it. All right,
Task
utility.
It looks like a great time.
Okay.
Albert, thank you.
It does look like a good time.
Utility
actually.
task vehicle.
Utility task vehicle. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was on this utility task vehicle, or UTV, and this 44-year-old Andy Joe Tipton of Monticello, at around 4:30 in the afternoon, started cruising around and came right at officers with this UTV. They signaled him to stop, but he continued to drive past them.
Oh.
Officials said that he made a U-turn and accelerated the UTV as he continued past deputies a second time. I mean, he's buzzing the tower. You're going to probably get some blowback.
Catch me, woohoo!
He traveled eastbound on Carter Circle, almost colliding with a deputy there. And he was finally found when he stopped the UTV, and they located a firearm in the UTV, and he was then transported not by UTV, but by officers, and he was charged with possession of a weapon, resisting an officer, fleeing to elude law enforcement with lights and sirens, and he's also a convicted felon. So bravo there. A Florida man.
I was going to say they should probably screen him for a UTI.
Oh, good. I was looking for some kind of reference, and thank you for that, because
Fabulous producer, John Daly.
Florida man stole cash from a tip jar. Say it ain't so. Feels like that's where society is now. People are in tough spots, some of them. And they reach into that tip jar. Here it is at the Honeysuckle.
A burglary suspect walked right through this door, acting as a door dasher, waited around until the coast was clear, or so he thought, and made off with cash from the tip jar and some food items. Caught on camera, this guy in the neon green shirt sitting at a counter waiting for food. A few minutes go by and he heads over to the cooler to grab a drink. Finally, he grabs cash out of the tip jar on the counter and walks out the door.
As soon as my girls went to go to the back to get the order to pack it up to give to him, he stuck both hands in the tip jar and pulled out all their money, put it in his pocket, and left without the order.
Mandy Amos, who owns the restaurant, making the decision to post photos from Monday night surveillance footage to Facebook, hoping someone would know something. Turns out they did.
We posted around 9 o'clock, and by 11:15, 11:30, we had such an outpour of responses that we actually had to mute the comments.
Leads led the Brevard County Sheriff's Office to identify, find, and arrest 33-year-old Titusville man Christopher McIntosh. An affidavit says he stole a chocolate bar, a Gatorade, and $131 from the tip jar.
The community was just crazy with the support and the responses, and we couldn't be more thankful. That's what the best part of it is.
You know, it's funny because you see it and it's so wrong, you know.
Yeah.
You find it, this is a weird phenomenon. You find it more galling somehow than probably some other scam, that like white collar scam that the guy could have done. And the
like
fact
stealing
that it happened
somebody's
at
luggage and keeping it hostage, something like that.
Holding my luggage hostage. But the Honeysuckle is a place where you just are not used to seeing that.
I've never seen nothing like that in Golden Corral before.
No, at Golden Corral or Honeysuckle.
But there's so
That's
many
true.
opportunities to steal food, like especially in the city with the door dashing, because the people are so busy, they're not paying attention, and it's all sitting there.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
I love how he didn't just put one hand in the tip jar; he put both hands in the tip jar.
Yeah, well, to be fair, if you're going to go for
scooping
one,
it out.
Yeah,
full go for both.
That's a pretty good tip jar. $131 in there. All right.
Yeah, that's not nothing. That's a good point. And finally, raccoons. Speaking of stealing, raccoons in Florida have lost their way. They themselves are involved in stealing.
They need Jesus.
They have stolen, and we have actual video of it, a woman's DoorDash. They were tacos stolen by raccoons.
I mean, wouldn't you?
Yes.
If you were a raccoon and you found tacos out in the wide open.
Well, they've made it
Taco Bell.
There it is. They've made it impossible for these poor raccoons to order from DoorDash, so they have to wait for other people's orders.
Hello.
Oh, that's kind of sweet. I liked it. Thank you.
He left the shells for them. That's nice.
Albert, what is the vote in the as for the favorite in our Florida list in the chat? Oh, you got to unmute for me.
Grit, Xbox Samurai, Grit's Attacker, Calling the Cops on the Cops, and Taco Bandits are our options. Also, you could just write in your vote if I didn't include your
Yes, you can write in the live chat, and do indicate afterward what your favorite is. We don't like to pick a favorite, but the bylaws of the show do require us to pick a favorite, and we start with you, Kim, please.
Kim, how are you?
Ooh.
Are we not reviewing the stories?
Oh, I'm so sorry. You're absolutely right. Let's review the stories.
Protocols and standards.
I apologize. Yeah, we have done a lot here, and let me recap them.
Florida
there was a dispute over the Xbox console that led to a samurai sword.
Yeah.
I blame you, Albert, for that. I don't understand why
Whoever is producing this thing
couldn't remember.
has no idea what they're doing.
I blame you for my inability to remember to review. Dispute over the Xbox console that ended with a samurai sword attack. The Florida woman smacking the mom in the face with grits. The dude accused of stealing equipment from construction site for a home project. A Florida man calling 911 during his own arrest to complain about the officers arresting him. A Florida man imprisoned for 37 years for a murder he didn't commit, now getting $14 million. A Florida dude arrested for allegedly leading deputies on a UTV pursuit. A Florida dude with both hands stealing from the tip jar, and raccoons stealing the DoorDash delivery of tacos. Kim, we are putting you in the hot seat first.
Kim, how are you?
While I appreciate both hands in the tip jar, I have to go with calling the police on your own arrest.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know how.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the
pretty
winner.
strong. How about you, fabulous producer John Daly?
Fabulous producer
John Daly. What is your
I
favorite?
I do like a raccoon bandit. Reminds me of Ranger Rick, the magazine I got when I was little.
Yes. Very strong reference.
Yeah, very strong.
Yeah.
But I think I have to agree with Kim. I have to go with the white privilege customer service sheriff call.
Yeah, that's a very, very strong pick. Albert, I ask you first, what's ahead in the chat, please?
The one that our two guests, or I guess our one guest, and Kim decided is number one right now. 60% of the vote for calling the cops on the cops.
Yeah.
I do like the visual of that. He's like in the back of the car.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm detained currently, and I don't like what they're doing to me.
Right.
But I do. Anytime there's a samurai sword involved in any story, that's an automatic vote. That's I will always go to that direction.
Yeah. How about that?
Albert, thank you.
I like that you went for the samurai sword. I do think that it's a closer race than it might seem, because the samurai sword really does vault that story to close to the gold medal stand. Still, for me, calling the cops on the cops, I got to give it to.
It's very meta.
I like that. Very
He didn't
meta.
say please when he asked me to put my hands behind my back.
Right.
What do we say? What do we say?
That's Friday Fabulous Florida for today.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
Well done, Albert. Well curated. Very good stories and a good mix, with that heavy story about the dude who was wrongly accused, getting the settlement from Tampa. I thought you did a nice job. John, thank you as
Fabulous
always.
producer, John Daly.
You contribute in so many different ways.
Thank you.
And lastly, I want to mention that the After Party Live goes down right after this.
We'll do it live.
Except next week,
and we'll do it live.
Yeah.
Kim's off, of course, Monday through Wednesday, so we are celebrating Kim's 5-day weekend. We tried to scour the shows for best ofs, but
it's hard sometimes.
It didn't work out, so we have pre-recorded shows.
Oh, good. Well, you'll have pre-recorded shows. That'll be
Fresh
great.
content.
There'll be something there. Okay. John Daly, everybody. Good stuff. Love it, love it, love it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Kim, I must ask you, did you send a link to Elex Michaelson?
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Oh,
Well,
but
then-
not now. But I did last night.
Okay. Well, maybe check in on him.
Maybe
Somebody
I'll
should
give him,
check in on
send him another little link.
because this is the time that he would be on.
Yeah.
So, and he's normally very punctual.
Maybe he forgot about us.
I doubt he forgot. Let me see. Maybe he texted me. This is what we do. We live out loud on this show. If we have an issue of any kind or a hiccup, you'll be the first to know about it.
We can do some shout outs while you're looking
No,
for that.
he doesn't have it,
Kathy.
Kim. Can you, didn't Kim send it?
Yep, I'm sending it right now again.
It's to an email address, yes?
I sent it at 8 this morning, and I just sent another one now.
What was, well, can you put in the chat, put in the private chat what you sent it to? Maybe,
Sure.
And I'll... Spencer, meantime, I think I saw it earlier, and I can want to acknowledge it in case I didn't. Spencer, you're always so supportive. Spencer Jaffe for a 5-spot. Thank you. We're a crowd-funded show. Karen Combs, huge shout-out. Big shout-out, Karen.
Big shout-out.
Come on with a 10-spot from Karen. KC, Karen Combs, coming through with 10. RP, Ray Perrin with a 20.
Big shout-out.
Come on. I'm not going to cry.
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
But I could. I could almost cry. Let me see if... let me just speak for a moment. Well, why don't you do a little bit of news, and then we'll get to... I'm telling him what we sent it to. Maybe do a turbo news, as we do have closing in on two things. We're closing in on... We have a court date for the former president, March 25th, in his trial involving the payoff money that was given to the sex worker. And to avoid a bad image, he was running for president at the time. And then we have a likely penalty that will be levied against the former president in his trial in New York. So with those kind of looming, it might be a good time to, and we're waiting on Elex Michaelson. Let's do a turbo newscast, and we continue. Smash the like button, Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. First, as Mark mentioned earlier, this former FBI informant is facing charges for allegedly lying about President Biden's involvement in his son Hunter's foreign business dealings. President Biden told reporters today the ex-informant did indeed lie. The president saying the impeachment inquiry against him, led by House Republicans, should be dropped, calling it an outrageous effort from the beginning. Alexander Smirnov, not like the vodka, but kind of like the vodka, is accused of falsely telling the FBI that executives of Ukrainian energy firm Burisma admitted to him that they hired Hunter Biden to get access to then Vice President Joe Biden. The indictment is a setback for House Republicans who have cited Smirnov's allegations in their push to impeach the president. 2 Los Angeles Fire Department firefighters who were critically injured in a truck explosion Thursday remain hospitalized, both in critical condition. The powerful explosion happened when the firefighters were attempting to put out a truck fire near the Los Angeles harbor, but that truck was powered by compressed natural gas, and one of its 100-gallon fuel canisters exploded. 7 other firefighters were injured. They've all been treated and released from the hospital. Democratic leaders in the state assembly unveiling a sweeping set of law changes to crack down on organized retail theft without involving the controversial measure known as Prop 47. Chairman of the Democratic Caucus and the Select Committee on Retail Theft, Assemblyman Rick Chavez of Hollywood, Rick Chavez Zeber of Hollywood, says the proposals create a new felony for possessing stolen items with the intent to sell. It also provides new tools for law enforcement to target organized crime. Zeber says the new proposals do not impact Prop 47, which made some nonviolent property crimes where the value doesn't exceed $950 into misdemeanors. Democratic leaders in the state assembly unveiling let's move on to the last story because I see that we have Elex has arrived. Ticket sales fell for Bob Marley, One Love, and Madame Web on Thursday after both films opened on Valentine's Day. One Love made $3.8 million, second day in theaters. That's a 73% drop from Wednesday, though. Madame Web brought in $2.2 million yesterday, bringing its domestic total to just over $8 million over 2 days. Again, this report sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore, where you say smash it with your iron rod and you get the Mark Thompson Show 10% discount. So call Rich at 925-699-4576. Look at the winery. So beautiful. It's wonderful to go out there for some wine tasting, walk around the vineyards, say hello to Rich. 30 minutes and you're friends for life is their motto. So check out Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore and make sure to get your 10% off. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens.
Wow.
This is The Mark Thompson Show.
Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
He is here now. I love it. I got worried, had that anxiety that he might not make it because he does have a lot of stuff going on. You know him from The Issue Is, seen all over California when it comes to politics, access to newsmakers. He is just the best. Elex Michaelson from Fox 11 in Los Angeles. Hello, sir.
Hey, Mark. Good to be with you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, sir. You've got, I think, a conversation about Prop 1 this week on your show, don't you?
We're talking Prop 1 with Senator Alex Padilla. We're talking Prop 47 with the mayor of San Jose, Matt Mahan, who thinks that it's time to amend that. And we're talking about reparations and specifically reparations in the city of Palm Springs with Areva Martin, with a real specific case there. So we're trying to get
remind everybody because it's coming up on the ballot, Prop 1 and 47. Just give us a second on those because they're significant.
We're trying to get as many hot button issues into one thing just to piss off as many people as possible.
Very well done.
Prop 1 is on the ballot on March 5th. So those are the ballots that have already gone out to everybody. And essentially what it is a bond that would help to build about 11,000 mental health treatment beds. And it would also allow for existing money and funds to be moved into more mental health strategies. Essentially, what lawmakers are saying is that homelessness is our biggest issue, and a huge part of homelessness is mental health. And that we as California have essentially failed on mental health treatment since the 1960s, when then Governor Reagan helped to close the mental health hospitals. The thought then would be that there would be new treatment facilities and new ways to help people, because they thought that what was happening in some of these mental health hospitals was, inappropriate. But that never really happened. And so you look at many of the homeless people on the street who clearly need help, and there's really no mechanism to force them to get the help. And even if you do get them the help, there's no place to put them. So the effort on this idea of care courts, which is something else that the governor and the legislature has been working on the last couple of years, is a mechanism to try to force people to get treatment if they resist it and are a danger to themselves and a danger to others. And Prop 1 is to create a place for them to go, for there to be beds to adequately deal with what's clearly a real problem.
And to Prop 47?
Prop 47 is something that was passed 10 years ago by Californians. And essentially, that was the measure that changed the threshold for stealing stuff from stores. That if you stole something under $950, it would be a misdemeanor instead of a felony. That came at the time when our jails and prisons were so overcrowded that the United States Supreme Court said that it was cruel and unusual punishment to keep that many people locked up. And so there was Prop 47, there was 57, there were other measures to try to get more people out of jail. Well, a lot of folks say, good concept, but the execution isn't working so well. So part of what the mayor of San Jose, the mayor of San Francisco, and now a bunch of Republicans are working together to say is, look, part of the problem with Prop 47 is people steal, $900, not $950, and then they steal another $900. They steal another, and it keeps accumulating, and they never really are taken behind bars in a serious way. This would help to change it so that if you aggregate a bunch of these different thefts, you can make it a felony. And try to have more serious punishments. That is something that would be for the November ballot, not for the March ballot, but is a real hot button issue in California.
Oh, yeah.
As we see when it comes to these criminal justice issues, our state has swung wildly like a pendulum back and forth, where we have locked up arguably too many people. And there's a lot of folks that felt like that was happening in the 90s with the 3 strikes laws and other things that sent a lot of people behind bars for a long time, to maybe going back the other way, where maybe there aren't enough people that are locked up and free of consequences. And so our state has constantly seen this back and forth. Oftentimes in the past, it was a back and forth between Republicans and Democrats. Now that the state is essentially completely run by Democrats, where they have super majorities in both houses, it's not even really about what Republicans think. It's about the divisions in the Democratic Party. And on the issue of Prop 47, you're starting to see some Democrats come out saying, we need to fix this.
Yeah, it's almost as though you make a good point. It's almost as though you look at the different wings of the Democratic Party. Even though it's all one party,
right,
there are obviously very different viewpoints within that party. And progressive policing, progressive prosecutions, they're sort of not so popular now as urban problems continue to affect cities. We have so many listeners and viewers around the San Francisco Bay Area. Same is true in LA, where they're trying to mount a real push to get rid of Gascon, who, San Francisco viewers know as well.
Right, and you look at what's happening in Oakland right now, where the governor had to bring in, some help from the state police, essentially, because that city has just been so unsafe, and there's been such a crime problem. You see this in the San Francisco mayor race, that it's not a lot of the progressives that are dominating that race, that it's more moderate candidates. So you see potentially a realignment a little bit in the Democratic Party on this issue. But that to be said, there's still a lot of progressives that feel like the policies of what happened in the 90s went way too far. There's a lot of people that feel like those policies were racist and disproportionately hurt the Black and brown community, that are supporters of Prop 47. Prop 47, by the way, was co-written by George Gascon in his previous role. Now he is the LA County District Attorney who is running for re-election. But there is a wing of the party that strongly believes in those policies and that are defending those policies. And so you're seeing that play out right now in the state. And you're right that Dem on Dem fight is frankly more interesting and probably more relevant at this point, with Republicans, so out of the mix.
Kim, did you have something?
I have some breaking news, actually, and it's news that we were waiting for, and something that is political in nature that you guys might want to discuss. The judge in the New York fraud trial has rendered a decision ordering Donald Trump to pay nearly $355 million in the civil fraud trial. In addition, Trump's sons must each pay $4 million. That would be Don Jr. and Eric were ordered to pay $4 million each after Judge Arthur Engoron found them liable for multiple fraud counts. So the judge has ordered former President Trump and his companies to pay nearly $355 million. Trump expected to appeal this decision. And while his appeal is considered, of course, we will get more information on this. But that is the judgment that we've been waiting for.
So this is to remind everybody this is the Trump Organization and Eric and Donald Trump. Obviously, Donald Trump Jr. I'm talking about. They were part of this, and it was a decade-long scheme as prosecutors presented the case, and it was, Alex, it was. I forget how long. I want to say it was days, not even a week, during which the judge said, Engoron said, the fraud is clear here. Just a question of, what the penalty will be.
Right. And essentially what the allegation was that they were lying about their assets and the value of their assets to try to pay less in taxes and to try to make more money themselves. And so you add this on top of what happened with E. Jean Carroll, where he's now supposed to pay her $81 million, on top of also in New York State, March 25th, they're supposed to start the hush money porn star trial on top of everything else that's happening in Georgia and Washington, on top of the fact that the guy is the Republican nominee.
It's wild. I mean, there's no stopping him.
Of this seems to help him. It feels like to people on the right that this is a pile-on, that these Democratic states with their Democratic prosecutors are trying to go after him and trying to stop him. And what he has been so good at doing is making people feel, and often saying, that when they come after me, they're really coming after you. Because I am here to be your voice. I am your retribution. I alone can fix it. And so they know that. They know how dangerous I am. They know what a danger I am, and which is why the deep state and the whole industry is coming after me, because they don't want me to represent you. And he has been so effective, and I know how you feel about that argument, but he has been so effective at making that argument to his base, which is, by the way, tens of millions of people, that he has created a stranglehold over the Republican Party, where he has total control over the party, where he's able to tell the Speaker of the House what to do, what not to do. And he's created a situation where being criminally charged is a political benefit. Now, we know Donald Trump likes his money. And he likes to be seen as rich. And you got to imagine he's not going to like this verdict. And it'll be interesting to see, how much money he really has. As we know, a lot of what he does is all about bravado and often is not based in truth. It's about the show. And this might be an example of how that not basing it in truth and making it all about the show in a courtroom can be devastating for you, because that's not the way that a courtroom works.
On what's really there with Trump, it's a lot less than he represents. And we talked about, and before he was even president, I was talking about the fact that The Apprentice really helped burnish the image of Trump as this billionaire with the slow motion shots as he got off the helicopter. Money. And Mark Burnett, brilliant producer, and he really created this image. And Trump has been using that image for a long time, but he didn't have the power of a hit NBC show to make it happen and put him over the top. And now, as you say, he has this cultish following, and he has control of a party. I mean, it's all well and good to say, well, it's a cult, they'll believe whatever he tells them. But the GOP, as you rightly point out, they're really in his power. I mean, the power to derail bipartisan legislation, which has just happened at the border. I mean, this is a top priority for so many, and Trump got them to derail that legislation.
And also got them to, so far, derail legislation to help Ukraine, help Israel, help Taiwan. I mean, there was a time not that long ago where things like that would be very top priorities for Republicans and not necessarily for Democrats. And the fact that this bipartisan bill passed in the Senate, where essentially the senators were willing to buck Donald Trump to do it, and it now is languishing in the House where the speaker says we're not even going to put it up for a vote, shows the power of Donald Trump. We'll see if the speaker is sort of railroaded on that and has to do it anyways. It could lead to the end of Speaker Mike Johnson's, very short tenure as speaker. But the power of Donald Trump is unlike anything I've seen in our lifetime. I mean, compared to any of the other presidents, it's really something. I was just out at a Nikki Haley event last week, because I interviewed her for The Issue Is out in Costa Mesa, and there were Trump supporters out front, and they just were very reminiscent of some of the sort of crazy religious Jesus people that are out on megaphones, saying stuff in your face. And it was just like replace Jesus with Donald Trump. And it felt like at least those people felt like they were just members of a cult. Now, we know that not all tens of millions of people that are Trump supporters are members of a cult, and there's all different reasons why people support Donald Trump. A lot of it is sending a middle finger to the system. A lot of it has to do with policy. A lot of it has to do with cultural identity. And a lot of it has to do with concerns about Joe Biden and his age. But there is an element of some of that, no doubt, in the party. And it's scary.
That's just a brilliant summary of the situation. And it's funny, as you talk about the age issue, they've really sold that so well, Trump and his people, when it comes to Joe Biden. Even though I thought Jon Stewart did a pretty good takedown. I was going to run it here, but I have to see if I get demonetized for running it. So I'll probably run it on Monday, where he just, all of the things that Donald Trump doesn't remember in deposition. Don't remember this, don't remember when I was married to Marla, don't remember any, and everybody in the Trump crew is just, it's a festival of I don't remember. But with, when there's some kind of any misstep on the part of Biden, they're able to sell that. But as you suggest, it fits in cleanly into the narrative that they've been pushing, and that the followers are all too willing to swallow. Albert, just because Elex mentioned the Nikki Haley, do you have that Nikki Haley clapback that her husband gave? I sent it to you. Nikki Haley's husband, who was invoked, to use the word that is so often used in the debates that you moderate, you were invoked, sir, so you have 30 seconds to respond. But the name of her husband was invoked by Trump on the stump, as this guy who, where is he? I don't know what the insinuation was, but I guess it, in any case, it wasn't positive. But he clapped back on X. Do you have it, Albert, or not?
Let me look. I don't see it here.
Oh, okay. I thought I sent it to you, but maybe I didn't. But essentially, and he's serving the country, right? He's
deployed overseas. The reason that he's not on the stump is because he's fighting for the United States of America overseas, which is not a secret. I mean, we talked about that the day before in my interview with her about what it means for her as a military spouse to have to, kiss her husband and watch him go off, potentially to fight in war zones. And the fact that he, one, either doesn't know that or is intentionally, trying to create the impression that maybe he doesn't really love her or all that. And then at the same time, where's Melania?
Yeah. This is what John Watts say. Where's Melania been hiding? Exactly.
I mean, she's appeared at her mom's funeral. Is among the only times that we've seen her. It was a weird projection to make that the focus when it's not like his wife is with him at every stump. And that's okay. The wife doesn't have to be there at every stump, but it just, it is a weird thing. And it is the kind of thing, Mark, that, for any other politician 10 years ago, that one thing, that one comment would probably end their career. Right? Yeah. Because it would be seen as disrespectful of the military. It would be seen as ignorant of the facts. It would be seen as out of bounds. But with Trump, it barely registers.
Sure.
You know, and it's on to the next thing.
Well, he's a guy who, I mean, you talk about disrespecting Gold Star families. I mean, my God, these people have died for the country. They have family members who've given their life. And, you know, he can.
Right. And Nikki Haley's response was the most in danger that Donald Trump has ever been is a golf ball hitting him on while he's driving a golf cart.
I mean, these are crazy times. And now Trump
and
will.
She's getting killed.
We'll be bouncing from court to court. Eric and Donald Jr. apparently are barred from serving as officers or directors of any New York corporation for 2 years as part of the judgment. But I was saying the other day, I mean, the Trump organization likely barred from doing business in the state of New York. They're going to go into receivership, essentially. And the idea somehow that this is just one more thing. You'll remember, Elex, after they defrauded the cancer charity for kids, they're not allowed to set up a charity in the state of New York. Trump University, they paid $25 million, and they're barred from setting up any kind of academic institution.
Living in Florida. New York hasn't been very good to the Trump team.
Florida's where he wants to be. Anyway, it's going to be a very interesting time for you. The issue will air all over the state and we have viewers all over the state, so check out your local listings. And it's cool. Elex really does. You get some great conversations going. And as you just noted, some of the stuff is ahead of the news, you know, like the Nikki Haley thing. So you've got Senator Padilla talking about Prop 1. You've got San Jose Mayor talking about Prop 47. And then, of course, reparations. We didn't even get to those. I'll look forward to hearing about that in Palm Springs.
I mean, if only Donald Trump would have watched The Issue Is last Friday night, he would have known, and he wouldn't have made that mistake. So there you go.
God, so true.
There's never been anything like this.
Alex, such a fan.
And this is their new hoax.
Yeah, all right. Good stuff, Alex. Love talking to you. And we'll see you next time. All right, good stuff, man. Thank you. Elex Michaelson, everyone. I told you
it's never easy being in this business.
The Mark Thompson Show.
He's the real thing, that Elex Michaelson. I recommend that show. The Issue Is. I mean, if you're in California and you want to get a primer on what's happening with propositions and with people who are quite relevant to the conversation and to politics, that's an important stop for you.
I'm a new fan. He's a Southern California personality, and so I wasn't aware of him. And then you turned me on to him, and now I can't get enough of his interviews and his takes on things, and I like him.
He works tirelessly too. Mm-hmm. Like that's he really works tirelessly, which I guess you have to do. There's just so much going on. Snyder is next, the Culture Blaster, with what to stream this weekend, what to watch. So we'll have that. This is big news. Thank you for breaking in with that. Yeah. Wow. David K. Johnston will have a lot to say about this on Tuesday.
I kind of want to call him right now.
I'll remind you, we are dark on Monday, but we're not really dark with no show. We have a best of show, and it's both fun and it's a look back. And then David K. Johnston joins us live on Tuesday. And David K. Johnston, as you know, has maintained for a long time, and in his books, he really lays it out. Donald Trump doesn't have any money. And Elex Michaelson mentioned it as well, that we'll find out. Elex didn't say that he didn't. David K. Johnston says, hey, he doesn't have the dough. He's not what he's representing. So this is going to be a big hit. Obviously, it'll be appealed, but monies will have to be put into an account during appeal.
The judge has barred Trump from applying for loans from banks registered in New York State for 3 years.
Huge.
I mean, and this is the guy. The judge says you've committed fraud, smacks him with a massive penalty, and we could be thinking of having a president that has this fraud conviction. Fraud. This guy's not on the up and up. We want him to be president?
Well,
please.
For Trump, the presidency is all about Trump, and as was noted, and he controls the party. And right now, if the election was held, even today, in the shadow of this most recent legal judgment, he might win. The entire election comes down in this ridiculous system we have to tens of thousands of votes. Tens of thousands of votes in a country this size. tens of thousands of votes in swing states. In those swing states where there are just enough voters who are independent on the fence, they'll settle the whole election. So he can lose by 10 million votes and still win the presidency. It's an insane system, but it's the system we have.
So in addition for being barred from applying for loans from banks registered in New York State for 3 years, the former president is also barred from serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation or other legal entity in the state of New York for 3 years as well.
Yeah, my elbow hit that button. I apologize.
I think that does that mean that his organization can't do business in New York for 3 years?
I mean, I think what David would tell you is that essentially, David K. Johnson, I'm talking about, who knows this territory pretty well, is that and I think David Katz said the same thing, that these parts of the Trump organization would then be taken over by
other people.
Yeah, other people, receivership type arrangements. And so that while technically the Trump people are connected, they won't be making decisions without those who are assigned actually being the ones who control the organization. But the organization, it is likely, I don't know if they'll have to liquidate these assets, but they may have to be broken up in some way to pay this. And they're going to appeal it. But again, there'll be monies that'll have to be put into an account until those appeals are seen. So, you can't just appeal it and not have to pay it.
The charges that Don Jr. and Eric were found guilty on or liable for include issuing false financial statements, falsifying business records, and conspiracy as well. And again, $4 million for each of them they have to pay.
So again, they inflated, by now chapter and verse on this, they inflated their assets when they wanted to get loans, and they reduced the asset assessments when they wanted to or had to pay taxes. That's like a super reducto on it, but that's essentially what it was. Kim's News, smash the like button if you would.
With your iron rod.
Thank you for the updates on that, Kim. I'm going to get Michael Snyder settled, and then we'll do some Snyder and Culture Blaster next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and just to recap, a judge has ordered Donald Trump to pay about $355 million in the civil fraud trial in New York. Both of his sons, Donald Jr. and Eric, will have to pay $4 million. And one thing I did not mention is that the former Trump Organization chief financial officer, Alan Weisselberg, is on the hook for $1 million in this case. So that is the verdict out of the civil fraud trial in the state of New York. This is a big thing, and that's going to be a very painful payment to have to make. Of course, an appeal is already in the works. A former FBI informant is facing charges for allegedly lying about President Biden's involvement in his son Hunter's foreign business dealings. So this is another big story, right? We got two in one day. President Biden told reporters today the ex-informant lied. The president saying the impeachment inquiry against him, led by House Republicans, should be dropped, calling it an outrageous effort from the beginning. Alexander Smirnov is accused of falsely telling the FBI that executives of Ukrainian energy firm Burisma admitted to him that they hired Hunter Biden to get access to then Vice President Joe Biden. The indictment, a setback for House Republicans who have cited Smirnov's allegations in their push to impeach the president. Two Los Angeles Fire Department firefighters who were critically injured in a truck explosion on Thursday are still hospitalized in critical condition. This powerful explosion happened when the firefighters were attempting to put out a truck fire near the Los Angeles harbor. It was powered by compressed natural gas, and one of those 100-gallon fuel canisters blew up. 7 other firefighters were injured in this. They've all been treated and released from the hospital. That is what we know out of Los Angeles. President Biden is praising a Russian opposition leader who reportedly died while behind bars. The president said Alexei Navalny was brave for standing up to corruption and violence carried out by Russian President Vladimir Putin's government. President Biden adding that Putin is responsible for Navalny's death, and he said it's proof of the Russian president's brutality. The chair of the House of the Education and Workforce Committee is accusing Harvard University of obstruction. The committee subpoenaed the university for allegedly withholding documents related to an anti-Semitism investigation. North Carolina Republican Virginia Fox, who chairs the committee, said she will not tolerate delay and defiance of the investigation. A SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket slated to take 3 astronauts and a cosmonaut to the International Space Station in just a couple weeks. The crew will spend 6 months at the space station conducting research. The Crew 8 mission will lift off from the Cape Canaveral Space Station just after midnight on March 1st. The Tennessee-based rock band Paramore is accusing their home state's legislature of blatant racism, and they say they don't want any acknowledgement or honor from the state house. Resolutions were introduced to honor Paramore and fellow Tennessee-based artist Allison Russell for their Grammy wins, and the resolution for Paramore passed. The House Republican Caucus Chair Jeremy Faison is accused of effectively blocking the honor for Russell, who is black and identifies as queer. And so now Paramore says, listen, we don't want anything to do with you either. So take it back. That's the way it goes.
Wow.
This report.
Good day, sir.
That's exactly right. You're not giving it to all of us? Then forget you. This report is sponsored by you, which means we do rely on you to crowdfund The Mark Thompson Show. Please find us at themarkthompsonshow.com, themarkthompsonshow.com. That's where the Patreon link is, and the PayPal link lives there as well. If you would like to support the show, the super chats and super stickers are open. Thanks to everyone who has contributed and helps us keep this show rolling. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this?
We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on, baby, right on. Yeah, big shout out to all of our Patreon and PayPal supporters. As Kim says, you are the reason we are here. Thank you so much. I'll recognize some of you by name next week when we come back on the air with David K. Johnson, the Pulitzer Prize winner, which we'll do on Tuesday. Monday, we have a best of show. But I do want to say one more thing, and that is simply that the Patreon and PayPal contributors, those who are part of the community of monthly supporters or even one-time big supporters, we try to recognize you at the end of every single show by posting your names, and we update those names once a month. So again, if you want to support the show, it's themarkthompsonshow.com, and there are click-throughs to Patreon and PayPal. This guy comes through on Fridays. He knows music and movies and television. He is a patron of the arts. He comes and goes on a rainbow. Michael Snyder, everyone, the culture blaster. Hello, sir.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Mark, late breaking news. Just outside the New York City courthouse, where he has been slapped down with a massive financial judgment, Donald Trump is standing with a cardboard sign that says, "We'll rant insanely for cash." Or Big Macs. He will accept Big Macs.
Very cool. Boy, is Michael Snyder with as topical as the last half hour. Very impressive.
I am a living hot button issue, baby.
You are.
Anyway, what a festive week it's been. First, the horror of the Super Bowl. I don't want to get too much in depth with that, but the loss of Dre Greenlaw to a phantom injury, and then the ridiculous lack of holding calls on the Chiefs offensive line preventing one of our strengths, the defensive pass rush from getting to Mahomes, were all very crucial, and the miscues and what have you, but my team win or lose. But then the revelry of Mardi Gras on Tuesday, the solemnity of Ash Wednesday, juxtaposed with the lovey-dovey delirium of Valentine's Day. I mean,
all right, I'll give you solemnity. I'll give you a juxtaposed. Probably
by the way, this was one of those rare years when Valentine's Day and Ash Wednesday fell on the same date. And I know I'm a couple days late, but I hope everybody had a happy Kiss My Ash Wednesday.
I love it. I got it.
And of course, one more quick note
Ash.
about the calendar. It's Chinese New Year. Gung Hei Fat Choi to all, and I hope your butt won't be dragging in this year of the dragon. I think I'm going to go downtown and there's got to be a big old parade, right?
And get your dragon on.
I will not be dragging my butt, but I will be having fun, I would hope.
All right. Well, I'm excited that you're here. Your recommendations are spot on, typically. And I'm looking forward to this week. What do you have?
Well, thank you. If there's anything I know, it's comic books. I grew up reading them. I can tell you who would win in a fight between the Hulk and the Thing. I know is DC's Dark Side more powerful or Marvel's Galactus? I mean, I know the difference. So take my word for it when I talk about comic book movies. And I'm not saying this because the studio tried to keep critics away from Madam Web to a certain extent, as in last-minute, early-hour screenings a day before reviews needed to be filed, or I'm not saying this because of superhero fatigue, but Madam Web, the latest half-ass attempt by Sony Pictures to capitalize off its contract with Marvel, giving Sony the use of any and all Spider-Man-related characters from Marvel Comics, is a bomb.
Wow.
I need to point out that Sony's 3 pre-Marvel Cinematic Universe Sam Raimi helmed Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire were pretty damn good. Maybe not the third, but the 2 follow-up Spidey movies they did with Andrew Garfield were okay. And the 3 relatively recent movies starring Tom Holland as Peter Spider-Man Parker and done in conjunction with Marvel as part of the Marvel Universe were serious fun and probably my favorites. But every other Sony-controlled live-action Spider-Man spinoff, Venom versus Carnage, and especially Morbius, every one of these was at best mediocre and at worst lame. And to be fair, Sony did hit the jackpot with the brilliantly crafted, explosive animated Spider-Man Spider-Verse movies where they let accomplished creators have their way. But alas, the live-action Spider-Man adjacent movies are mostly exercises in hackery, and Madam Web may be the worst of them.
Wow.
It's certainly the silliest and the clumsiest and possibly the most repetitive.
What's the premise?
Okay. Dakota Johnson plays Cassandra Webb, a Manhattan paramedic whose mother was a scientist studying spiders in the Amazon while pregnant and dies during childbirth, but not before some spider juice in her system gets into baby Cassandra. So now it's the early 2000s, and Cassandra she's working in, I guess she's in Manhattan with a fellow EMT named Ben Parker.
Okay.
As in Peter Parker's Uncle Ben. So I'm trying to tie things in, right? Yeah. And for the record, by the way, Ben is played by Adam Scott of Parks and Recreation, a sitcom that was intentionally funny.
Mm-hmm. I see. This is unintentionally funny as your
I
implication?
think we're getting to the point. It's rescues as usual until Cassandra starts getting glimpses of the future, including alarming visions that have to do with 3 women endangered by some spidery dude who was up to no good. So, right. Cassandra Webb, as in Cassandra, the blind seer of Greek mythology, and Webb, as in, what spiders spin, is getting future visions involving arachnids.
Okay.
Heavy-handed much? Anyway, the 3 women played by Girl of the Moment Sydney Sweeney, Celeste O'Connor, and Isabella Merced are all spider-themed heroes in the comic books, but not for the bulk of the movie. So they have this setup, and we're the Spider Girls, the Spider Women, the Spider Babes. So the Nemesis, played by Tahir Rahim, this guy was so good in the Serpent miniseries, and he is so cashing a paycheck here. He is Spider-Man comic book villain Ezekiel. And none of these people are given much to say that isn't laughably stilted dialogue or to do that isn't like eye-rolling material. And look, when she's given a meaty role with a good script like A Bigger Splash, Johnson does a good job. And here she's trapped in a stinker and sometimes even looks like she wants to hold her nose, physically looks like she wants to hold her nose. So veteran TV director S.J. Clarkson and her 3 screenwriting collaborators have made this sort of nonsensical comic book movie that used to give comic book movies a bad name. And there are genuinely witty superhero movies out there. This is not one of them, although I did laugh at it in a sort of contemptuous way.
Wow, contemptuous, Dingman.
Madam Web is in theaters.
Man, you really didn't like it. How about, I'm really anxious to hear what you think of this Bob Marley, One Love.
All right, as much as I admire the late
because you're a big music guy, and
I admire the late Bob Marley, the dreadlocked poet of reggae music and a benign, peace, love, and weed icon of the Rastafarian religious cult. And as much as his albums with his band, The Wailers, have meant to me over the years, and they've meant a lot, I can't help but admit that this new biopic about the man, Bob Marley, One Love, is kind of dull. And that's the
wow, that's not what I've heard from all the pedestrian civilians who are not in the kind of
place
that you are.
I was wrapped up in a lot of it, but it's all very much on the surface. Wow. Okay.
Does an itty-bitty bit of weed?
Were you with the weed when you were seeing it? No. Okay.
I hadn't taken a gummy. I just went in there completely sober.
Okay.
Listen, I believe in
maybe that was the problem.
Being astute when I do these.
I understand.
Reviews.
Yeah, you keep utter clarity.
Despite solid performances by Kingsley Ben-Adir as Marley and Lashana Lynch as his wife Rita, and some heaping helpings of the man's music, original tracks and recreations throughout. I mean, we're talking Get Up, Stand Up, One Love, Lively Up Yourself, Don't Worry About a Thing, Jamming, Is This Love, Stir It Up, Buffalo Soldier.
Sure.
How about No Woman, No Cry, which I originally thought meant if you don't have a girlfriend, you're not going to be miserable. But that's really not what it's about.
How dare you?
I know.
I love it.
So the film is directed by Ronaldo Marcus Green and approved by members of the Marley family who are still with us. And it tries to make a case for his musical and cultural significance and his status as a force for goodness and unity on the geopolitical front, especially in his native Jamaica. And that's despite sinister types who were aligned against him and tried to bring him down with guns and ammunition, man.
All right.
And I was not blown away, okay? Will this movie bring followers to Rastafarianism and its supposed prophet, the late Haile Selassie? Highly unlikely. As a matter of fact, what we have here is a boilerplate movie biography. Yes, it's great that they did this thing about Bob Marley and are bringing him to audiences who are moviegoers, but, this happened, then he was shot, then he recorded his biggest album in London at the height of the punk movement, and then his wife Rita, one of the I3's backup singers in the Wailers, confronts him about his extramarital dalliances and so on. But for all of the effort to recreate his life and times with flashbacks to his childhood, the youthful start of his romance with Rita, early career stuff, and regardless of the committed work by Ben-Adir as Bob and Lynch as Rita, it never seems to dig deep enough.
Wow.
That's the problem with this thing. I mean, the script is by 4 writers, including the director, and it feels like it could have been based on a Wikipedia page. I mean, maybe his life would have been better served by a mini-series that could have done right by his odyssey from the Trenchtown shacks of his youth to global superstardom, and I am sure Wailers fans might enjoy it, but as much as this Wailers fan appreciated Marley's life and music being honored by a feature film, nothing lingered in the aftermath other than the echo of his most famous songs. Bob Marley, One Love is in theaters.
Wow. I'm really surprised by this, Michael Snyder.
I've
heard really from my friends, I've heard it's really great.
It's not bad. It's just all surface. And again, it goes from here to here to here to here to here, and it doesn't linger.
Wow. No
enough.
soul. Would you call it soulless, Michael? Would you call it soulless,
There's
sir?
a lot of soul on the screen. I mean,
would you call it soulless? I'm asking you, would you call it soulless, yes or no?
You want to hear about soul? I'm going to tell you about soul.
All right.
Can you let him finish, sir?
All right, I'll let him finish.
Wim Wenders, who's starkly beautiful and bittersweetly romantic and thoroughly fantastical Wings of Desire, is in my top 20 movies of all time.
Yes.
He's the embodiment of the idiosyncratic filmmaker.
Idiosyncratic.
He's also pretty eclectic. You got your gritty interpersonal drama, Paris, Texas. There's a period San Francisco detective story, Hammett, and the Cuban music documentary, Buena Vista Social Club. They're among his notable achievements. German-born man, but, you know, he works in English and Spanish as well as German. And with Perfect Days, he's giving Japanese a go. And in the process, Wenders tries something different from all of his previous projects. He points his camera at the daily and nightly activities of Hirayama, a man who cleans public toilets in Tokyo.
Oh, yes. I've heard about this being very good. Did you like this?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
All right. Sorry.
Does it sound drab and even boring? Don't be misled. I should note that despite the attention and the verity and the detail in his depiction of a professional toilet cleaner, Perfect Days is not a documentary or a docudrama. With a script written by Wenders and Takuma Takasaki, Perfect Days shows the sometimes unpleasant requirements of the profession while revealing the simple beauty in Hirayama's life. Things that spark joy for him, his love of music, his occasional breaks to shoot nature photographs in the urban parks where his job sometimes takes him, and the unexpected connections he makes with a range of people during the course of his work. So as Hirayama goes about his business, Perfect Days also slowly divulges bits and pieces of his backstory. So the superb actor Koji Yakusho, I met the guy, and I'm having trouble with his last name, but, you know.
That's all right. That's okay.
He plays Hirayama, and he's on screen for almost the entirety of Perfect Days. He brings warmth and whimsy and subtle emotions to the part. Complexity amidst the simplicity. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And by the way, Yakusho starred in the charming art house hit Shall We Dance, which was remade in the U.S. with Richard Gere in the lead role. In case you want to know who this guy is, he is a big star in Japan.
Wow.
This may be a little arcane for those of us who are not cinephiles, but Perfect Days recalls the work of the masterful Japanese director Yasujiro Ozu, movies like 1953's Tokyo Story that gazed upon the quiet daily doings of ordinary people making their ways through life as best as they can. Perfect Days does the same, as Wenders shows the nuts and bolts of Hirayama's toil and the unpretentious pleasures that color his world. And this is done without any condescension. There's like delicacy and poetry to Perfect Days. It was inspiring. I loved it. And it's in theaters right now.
It sounds as though this is your pick.
Absolutely.
We have time for only one more, sir, because I want to get David Katz, who has agreed to come on in an urgent way before we sign off.
Are you really? Okay.
Is that right? Yeah, one more.
When you have Russell Crowe and two Hemsworth brothers, Liam and Luke, not Chris, by the way, in your movie, odds are that there's going to be more than a whiff of testosterone to the proceedings. And sure enough, Land of Bad, which appears to be an Aussie production, despite all these guys playing American military men, is an action-filled thriller about a special forces operation in the Philippines that goes off the rails and requires an extraction. It's manly men doing manly things with phallic boomsticks in hand. Liam, who is probably best known from The Hunger Games, is the main Hemsworth here, and he plays Kinney, a first-timer, on a mission that seems to be an attempt to kill an Islamic terrorist or terrorists and destroy their stronghold, again in the Philippines. When Kinney escapes an ambush, he's determined to survive and try to save any members of his unit who were captured and might still be alive. The Americans are sending in an airstrike, so he's got to be quick about it. And to get out unscathed, he needs to rely on the drone pilots back on the U.S. base, who are led by aging, portly Maverick Officer Reaper, played by the aging, portly Maverick Crowe, by the way. The Hemsworth named Luke from TV's Westworld, and Milo Ventimiglia from TV's This Is Us play two of Kinney's fellow soldiers. As firefights and torture scenes mount up, the director and co-screenwriter William Eubank keeps the plate spinning. I mean, the missiles flying and the bombs dropping. Land of Bad, maybe a B movie in the bang and boom modern day stealth war genre, but the tension is palpable and kept me glued to the screen. And even with his butt planted in front of a bunch of video monitors and control panels, using a joystick to fly his drones, Crowe still has the magnetism and star quality that makes him such a welcome presence in a whole range of movies. Land of Bad ain't bad at all, especially if you're a moviegoer looking for some machismo.
Wow.
It's in theaters.
Palpable is a dang word.
Land of Bad in theaters.
All right, thank you, Michael. I'm sorry to have to wrap up, but I am going to recap. Land of Bad, you've just heard Liam Hemsworth, Russell Crowe, Luke Hemsworth. I mean, my God, there's just so much man on that screen. Yeah. And you need that much man when you're fighting Islamic terrorism in the Philippines. Am I right?
Absolutely.
You're damn straight I'm right.
It's a throwaway, but I totally enjoyed watching it. Let's put it that way.
He loved it as a throwaway.
Well, I didn't love it. I liked it very much.
He liked it as a throwaway. Bob Marley, One Love. He didn't say it, but I'll say it based on his review. Soulless.
No, it just
You said it was surface like a Wikipedia page.
Yeah, okay,
that's what
fine.
you said.
Fine. One Love.
All right. I still am going to give it a ride.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Well, one of them is going to be going to see One Love. In the chat, many people are saying, drop a little, go see it. People will go to Marley movie for music, says Lori.
Listen to the albums.
Stay home and get baked watching One Love, says Julie.
Right.
Search engines say Bob Marley enjoyed sativa strain, says Chris. Arcane is a ding word, says Tom. All right.
Madam Web, yikes.
Now, Madam Web, the Spider-Man related spinoff with Dakota Johnson. What could possibly be wrong? Michael says everything's wrong with it. It's not funny. Except
unintentionally
in
funny.
a laugh at it way.
Yeah.
Tahar Rahim, sadly, in a bomb. He called it a bomb. And
so
let's review.
Perfect Days is the movie that I am unimpeachably in love with this week.
Perfect Days. And that is the movie about the guy who cleans the
public toilets.
Public toilets.
But he's a wonderful man, at least the character is. And by the way, the actor, I met the actor, charming fellow.
Speaks English?
Through an interpreter, I said, you remind me of someone. The guy, what's his name? Richard Gere. That's who you remind me of. And he laughed his ass off.
Oh, that's great. I love that you met him.
The role in the English language version of Shall We Dance, the role that he made famous. Anyway, yeah.
Koji Yakusho.
Yeah.
Perfect Days. That will definitely be a movie that I check out. Michael, you're so kind to be with us every week. You can follow Michael across social media. He is the Culture Blaster, and he comes and goes on a rainbow.
Go Warriors!
Go. Sorry about the Niners, pal.
I know.
All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is quite unorthodox, but these are unorthodox times in which we live. A major ruling in the Trump case. A New York judge ordering Trump and his companies to pay a penalty of more than $350 million. The sons being hit with a penalty of $4 million each. The judge banning Trump from doing business in New York for 3 years and banning the sons from being on any board in any business for 2 years, being executives essentially. And now we put up the bat beam and he's responded. We'll do a quick 10-minute conversation with the great former federal prosecutor, now defense attorney, David Katz, everyone. David,
hi, great to be with you guys.
You are just so great to be here. Start where you want to and give us a sense of what just happened.
Well, this is the long-awaited verdict in the case. Remember, it's not a jury trial. Judge, it could have been perhaps if Donald Trump and his lawyers had asked for a jury. They did not. So the judge never had to make that call. It became a judge trial where the judge determines not only the law, like in a normal case, but also the facts. So the judge heard enough to grant summary judgment and say there was no need to hear any more about fraud. So he then held a trial as to some other claims and also as to how much money Trump and his organization would have to pay. So there was a lot of screaming by Trump, oh my God, you already decided things. Well, yes, you already decided things because there was an overwhelming case of fraud. Remember, Mark, this is the case where he had an apartment that he said was 3 times as large as it was. And he said, well, it was an opinion. He also had this habit of overvaluing the same item when it came to getting loans against it from banks and insurance companies, and undervaluing it when it came to paying taxes on it. So you hear a lot of complaining in the media, especially in the right-wing media, that, oh my goodness, Mar-a-Lago's worth so much money. By the way, if Mar-a-Lago was really worth billions of dollars, what's $364 million for the Trumps, right? So one of the problems with Mar-a-Lago is that they had to make all of these restrictions on it, so they can't subdivide it. So what he does is he gives the amount, if he could have subdivided it, to the banks and the insurance companies, and then he tells the tax man, oh, it can't be subdivided, so it's really not worth very much. He keeps playing that game, and he got caught. And the judge, Engoron, in New York City, is all over this. So we were just all waiting for the verdict. We've been hearing during the trial that it was going to be about $150, $200 million. Then as more proof rolled in, there was actually a basis for the final verdict of the judge, which is $355 million against Trump, $4 million each against Eric, and $4 million against Donald Jr. They're barred for 2 years. The only good news for them is that he didn't, quote, kill the company. This was not the death penalty. This was a stay of execution, if you want to call it that.
Oh, so the company's not going to go into receivership, as we discussed?
It is, but it's a suspension of in terms of an actual death penalty, and saying you, Trump, and your sons may never operate the Trump organization again. Never, ever, ever. They're not allowed to, Trump's not allowed to operate it, Mark, for 3 years. The kids have a suspension of 2 years. In the interim, they have no effective control. They have no important decision making. That's going to be done by a former federal judge, Barbara Jones, who's been the monitor. And then within 30 days, she has to come up with 2 different officials who are going to be approved by the judge. One to actually manage it day in and day out. People say, well, maybe they'll just put Ivanka in there. No, they will not just put Ivanka in there, because it'll be somebody chosen by the court after being recommended by this monitor. And number 2, they're going to have a compliance officer who's going to go over the thing, right? Completely, and make sure that they're actually in compliance, that they're not doing things like overstating the value of things 3 times, that they're not lying to banks, that they're not cheating the tax authorities. And we'll see how that goes. But it's a major blow, and it's a pretty final decision in the case. It doesn't seem like there's very much to appeal. The judge was very careful.
But there will be an appeal, David Katz, even though, but I want to know the next couple of moves. And again, our time is so short. You're so great to come on. The next couple of moves in terms of 2 things: the appeal, and also during that time, you'd mentioned before that monies have to be put aside. That is to say, there will have to be some kind of payment. You just can't appeal it without there being some kind of payment toward that penalty you've just described.
This is a little bit like E. Jean Carroll, also a civil case, also in New York. When he lost $5 million, he had to put up $6 million of his own money, the amount of the judgment, plus what would be the sort of bond amount. Then when he lost the huge amount against E. Jean Carroll, the stunning amount, he's going to have to probably go to an insurance company or a bank and probably pledge Mar-a-Lago or something like that, so that any bank will trust him to put up that money for him. And right now, yes, to appeal this, he'll have to do the same thing. This will have a major hit on his cash flow running for president. This is not something where the suckers can just send in $20, and from a bunch of suckers sending him 20 or $100, he can pay this. This is a major event in his cash flow for Trump.
But just to be specific, David Katz, this is not a percentage like you'd put a down payment on a house. This is a judgment of hundreds of millions of dollars. Will he, I'm not asking you for a specific figure, I'm sure that has to be worked out, but will it be north of 100 million that he'll have to put in some kind of, in other words, what will he have to come up with?
Yes, no, he's going to have to come up with either $370 million. Presumably, if Mar-a-Lago is really worth billions of dollars, somebody will put, right, they'll put a lien against Mar-a-Lago and they'll give you the $370 million, just like if you get, money against your house. Or he'll have to go to a bonding agency and he'll have to pay, I think it's 11%. So 370 million plus the 11% VIG for the bonding agency, or he'll have to go to a bank and convince the bank that he's going to pay the bank back the 370 million, the amount that he had for E. Jean Carroll, and all the other money that he may owe in these other cases. This is a major cash flow problem for him. And what an irony. With all the things that are kind of going his way in some of the criminal cases and with the delays, this is the one, right? This is the one that may be his Achilles heel, just because he'll be so bleeding for money. And he's already doing crazy things like trying to put his daughter-in-law in charge of the RNC, which apparently controls a lot of the spigot for the money. If you're giving money to the Republicans and just having it go to pay Trump's malfeasance awards, really, Republicans, are you really going to do this when Nikki Haley is right out there, who has no blemishes? I mean, she's a lot of political differences that I have with her, philosophical differences, but at some point, I don't know, South Carolina voters, maybe they'll be the ones to wake up and say, this guy has too many legal problems.
Yeah, it's interesting, though. They, of course, farm that out to the fact that the system is stacked against him. And, there are a lot of ways that they rationalize support. But this is remarkable. And thank you for coming on and explaining it. And then next week, we'll speak about some of the other things, the Georgia case with Fani Willis. I thought it was, even as you set the scene for us quite well yesterday when you spoke to us about Fani Willis, she clapped back pretty hard while she was being questioned, didn't you think?
I think she may not be removed from the case after all, and neither may be her special prosecutor. And in my opinion, woe on the case. I think it would have been so much better for the objective. She's right. It's not about her and her boyfriend. It's about Trump. But she has managed to change the focus so much to herself and her boyfriend. She is the perfect foil for Trump. Trump doesn't need a perfect foil like her. He needs to have the case move along, go to trial, and be convicted down there in Georgia. So let me just ask you viewers one last thing to think about, your listeners to think about. Okay, if you don't believe that this case is really going to go to trial and end up in Trump being found guilty before the election, what is the purpose of not having this case go to another nearby district, have the district attorney just pick it up? These people say it'll be thrown out completely. I don't think it will be. I think it'll be picked up just the way it is and run with just the way it is, but with a prosecutor and a special prosecutor who don't have these problems. Anyone out there who says she doesn't have a problem with the optics of this, including with her testimony, whether she clapped back or not. Mark, if you need any money, I got $10,000 all the time in a box. I don't need to write you a check. You don't need, you know what I mean? Because we all know that we do that because Daddy told us. The great joke is, who is her daddy? Al Capone? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, the father testified, and we played some of it. It was actually fairly compelling. But I hear what you're saying. You're saying, look, this is this is an important case, an extremely important case, a president trying to undermine the vote in a critical state. And you're saying this creates this distraction that really pulls everybody off of that focus. And now we're all about the girlfriend and the boyfriend and you make a really good point that way. Hey, David, thank you. Have a good weekend, and let's talk next week.
I'll see you next Thursday.
Look forward to it. David Katz, everybody. Thank you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, we got a great visit with David Katzen. Wow, that was quite extraordinary. Thanks again to our culture blaster, Michael Snyder, for kind of cutting his thing short a little bit.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah. And Harry Magnan, here's to the Red Jack.
Big shout out.
We love our Red Jack Saloon in San Francisco. All of you who contributed and supported us today, thank you. The Lady Beatrice. How much do you want to bet Trump and the boys will try and find a way out of paying up? No, you can definitely guess that they're wishing for a way, but that's why I asked David Katz. There may not be a way. I mean, he gave you the two ways. You're going to have to come up with a bond, or you're going to have to come up with a loan that'll be collateralized against Mar-a-Lago or something else. Multiple battery arrests. So I'm surprised they keep letting her out. That was on Friday Fabulous Florida.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Albert, you rocked Florida today, baby. Thank you.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Best of Monday. We'll talk Tuesday. Until then, bye-bye.